Ground control to Major Tom.
We've been expecting you, Mr. Boyd.
His is the worst voice you will ever hear.
Will he offer me his teeth?
The Tommy Boyd Show will teach you nothing. Nothing.
Always read the label.
Nothing but iniquity and wickedness.
If you really bug me, then I'll say goodbye.
Morning. This show prides itself on two things. One, talking about the things that people talk about, and B, not talking about the things that other shows and radio stations talk about. However, I want to insert a caveat, if you're allowed to do that, this afternoon, between 2 and 3. I would like us to be the snow on the mountain of the conversations that are had about...
Talk to Tommy Boyd. Free call 0500 1053 89.
An hour of hard, constructive radio. So if you're a bit thick, don't call. That royal family, we've got to prepare them for survival in the wild. In 30 or 40 years' time, they'll be on, well, not on the bus with us. They should be sliding past in their limo on their way to the office. Let's talk to Richard in Bristol. You're on Talk Radio. Richard, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tommy. Love you. Love your show.
Why, thank you.
Now, let me disabuse everybody in the country that seems to think that the royal family cost us money for this start-off before I get to what they can do in the future. They don't actually cost us a penny.
You don't have to. We never thought that for a minute.
Oh, well, a lot of people do. You see, there was a nice American chappie on earlier on thinking that taxpayers' money was actually supporting the royal family.
Yeah, we're not talking about that. We're talking about how
no, well, I just want to say this before I start. The royal lands that they gave back in decades and
You're going to tell us this stuff we've heard 1,000 times, aren't you, Richard?
Yeah,
Why?
It's hurt me to say that before I start.
Why is that?
What I think they ought to do is start a cruise line. Well, I think the cruise line will be something sort of in their line, I would think. I can't think of anything else, though.
No, you can't. No. Free call 0500 1053 89. To be quite honest, it must be because it's a Tuesday. I don't know. The ideas aren't forthcoming. I think I might flip this in a second. I don't know. I'm not going to flog a dead horse. And I saw Coronation Street last night, did you? Can you see where this one's going? This is prisoner of cell block H visits Coronation Street. When they sent Meg to prison, do you remember? It wasn't like that at all. Had violin music, and you never saw another cellmate. Is that Margie Clark? Is it? Well, what's all that about then? And she's being very bossy, isn't she? I mean, what's the storyline going to be? I think I know. But I wouldn't dream of mentioning it, just in case I'm right. But I don't want to talk about Deirdre. Not really. Free call 0500 1053 89. Quinton calls from Stoke. Quinton, you're on Talk Radio. Good afternoon.
Yes, now, Tommy, we do love you and your show, but this is quite absurd. I mean, it really is.
Which bit?
Well, I mean, let's face it. If we were to let's just say, for argument's sake, that we were to put the royal family into business, right? Let's just say, for argument's sake, we were to do that. And then, someone had an accident at work. It would be, Queen makes me lose my arm, or I'm sacked by Prince Charles. I mean, where would it all end? I mean, the whole reason why we have a royal family is so that they don't, so that they be royal. They are, that they are the royal family. If we start having them running businesses and whatnot, and then supposing they had an airline and it crashed, Queen's airline crash disaster or whatever. I mean, it just wouldn't work. It's absurd.
Well, look, if an equerry trips over the carpet at Buckingham Palace, right, they sort it out. And the liability there is far greater than if they're flying a plane of the Queen's flight. So that isn't a problem. I don't see what your worry is there. Look, we've got lawyers for that sort of thing, haven't we? That isn't a problem.
Yeah, well, all right. Well, I mean, the major problem is it would just tarnish the whole image of the royal family. I mean, they're not supposed to be sort of entrepreneurs making money. They're supposed to be...
No, look, can we kill this idea of them being supposed to be anything? Nobody's supposed to be anything. What are you supposed to be then? Tell me.
Well, we're not talking about me. We're talking about them.
It'll give me some idea of your own thinking if you can explain to me what you're supposed to be, and then we might have some favour for your idea that the royal family are supposed to be anything. Go on.
Right. Well, I'm supposed to get an education and get a job that's going to allow me to provide for myself and for my family.
But supposes who?
Pardon me?
Supposes who?
Well, I mean, that's life. Survival of the fittest, surely.
No, I'm asking you a valid question. You're saying that's what you're supposed to do. Supposes who? Who supposes that?
Well, I mean, it's common sense. Otherwise, you can't survive. I mean, you've got to eat. You know, you've got to survive. But the royal family, they're royal, so they don't. We work as a country, and then as the royal family, they rule the country. That's the whole idea.
Well,
it's
they
not,
don't.
It's not for them to go out to work.
They
and
don't
start,
rule the country anymore, Quinton. They haven't got a job in that department at all.
Well, at least they bring in tourism. I mean, that's the main thing.
Lazy stuff. I've heard it on a million phone-ins. Next point.
Wow. Look, my main point is that if we start having the royal family going out to work like everyone else, and I think you said about fostering kids and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, why not? Why not? Why doesn't the Queen and Phil foster a kid? They've got the space now. The boys are grown up.
Well, I don't want to use the word...
Why not? Why not?
I don't use the word common, but I mean, I think it's...
Common?
No,
common?
I'm not saying that
How
it is...
dare you?
No,
Foster parents are common?
No, I didn't say that. No, you're twisting my words. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there are some things that subjects do, and there are some things that kings and queens do. I mean, that's logical, straightforward.
The public's perception, listen to me, man, of the royal family is that they do nothing, sleep around, get divorced, act above the law, don't care about other people, are careless with their money. If the Queen and Prince Philip took in a couple of foster children, it would point the way for lots of other people who can do the same thing, and it would also teach them a little bit about what goes on round the street corners.
And then people like you in the press will be ganging up and saying the Queen's foster child, you know, at drug party and stuff like that. So, I mean, they've got to protect themselves. And if they were to start doing the stuff that you suggest, then the press would have an even bigger field day than they're having now. So I just suggest that they keep it royal and keep it safe. I mean,
you mustn't be afraid of the press, Quinton. You mustn't be afraid of the press.
I'm not afraid of the press, but let's face it. Just say, for argument's sake, we did that fostering kids. I mean, that child would have no peace, would they? You know, and then you'd have a parent that would be saying...
No, look, whenever somebody loses something, Quentin, somebody gains something. Now, it's very caring of you to care about the foster children, but quite frankly, I think they'd have a jolly good time of it. And they could sell their story at the end of it, and they'd never have to work, which would probably please them as well. Hear me out, hear me out. Hear me out. No, you do mind a joke. You haven't got a sense of humour. Hear me out. The people that I am hoping would benefit from fostering would be the royal family themselves, because they need more contact with what's often called the unwashed, like you and me.
Well, yes, all right.
Yes, they do, don't they? They do, don't they?
Yes, yes.
You can't have a casual chat with Charles. Have you ever tried?
Well, no, but I mean, I
you
don't
can't do it.
expect to have a casual chat with... I mean, the whole idea about being royal, this is what I'm trying to say, the whole idea about being royal is that you're somewhat removed from you know, I don't want to use the word common. I don't like to use that word, but from common people. That's
where are birds of plumage supposed to be? In cages or flying free in the jungle?
Well, flying free in the jungle.
No, they're supposed to be in cages. You haven't kept up.
Well, I mean,
with your own argument.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's different. We're talking about human beings here. And what I'm trying to say is if you have them doing all the sort of things, I mean, working at Sainsbury's and whatever and saying, oh, I'm the Queen and doing a 9 till 5, I mean, she'd cease to be the Queen.
Yeah, look, shut up, Quinton. Honestly, this is ridiculous. We've made it absolutely clear we are not having one of those bog standard phoning programmes in which we talk about whether the Queen should be made to go and stack shelves at Tesco's. That is not what we're talking about. Got to get so cross with some phoning programmes that trammel out topics like that. For goodness sake, that is not what we're talking about. We're talking about that. Let me spell it out. We're talking about the future mental health of the royal family. And if they continue to have to live as they are, with society moving away from them so quickly, then things are going to get worse. And you don't need to have been a student of the 20th century to realise how bad things have already got for them. So we need to hold out a hand. We need to help them into the millennium too. And every 1,000-mile journey begins with the first step. They do need to do something. I quite like the idea of them taking over part of the National Health Service and encouraging people to donate blood. Do they carry organ donor cards?
Across the UK, this is Talk Radio, the conversation of the nation. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm bored with this. You bored with this? I'm bored with this. Let's junk it. I'd walk away from anybody in the pub who knew anything about the royal family anyway, wouldn't you? Exactly. So look, all right, I give in. If we must talk about Coronation Street for 10 minutes, no more. No, 5 minutes. If we must talk about Coronation Street, then we will, but just for 5 minutes, because we've got something much more earth-shattering to talk about between 3 and 4. So all right, free call 0500 10 53 89. Go on then. Coronation Street's decided to go down market, go tabloid, go silly, go for headlines, go for issues, get talked about in the broadsheets because they're investigating an issue. It was always EastEnders that used to investigate issues. When we used to watch EastEnders, we'd always say, here comes the message. And sure enough, there was something about racism or drug taking. Well, now Coronation Street is doing it. Coronation Street, which used to be nothing more or less than a comedy programme. Coronation Street's now got an issue. And what's the issue? Women in prison. Why have they chosen women in prison? Because they feel that's a pressing issue? Did you know, talking about prison, that the numbers today are that 1 in every 250 men in Britain is in prison? 1 in every 500 people in Britain is in prison. There are far fewer women in prison, of course, than there are in Britain. But men in prison aren't very interesting, because we've had plenty of movies about that, and everybody knows about that, or at least they think they do. They probably don't, but they think they do. Now, women in prison has a curious fascination, doesn't it, for the public at large? Not for me. Not for me. I go to bed when Prisoner of Cell Block H comes on. But they're up to something here, the programme producers, aren't they? This is the first time I think Coronation Street's gone a bit cheap, if you ask me. And I think the sight of Margie Clark towering over Deirdre, I only watched for 90 seconds last night, towering over Deirdre and bullying her in the prison cell, an elaborate cell they've built, by the way, so it looks as though this is going to be a plot line that we're going to have around for a while. For a while. Her appeal's not going to work. Why? Because they've built a set. Now, you don't have to work in television to put these things together and make 4. And the young prison warden, a young lady who is obviously, I think, going to end up as Deirdre's friend and campaign for her and protect her from Margie, the Margie character. Free call 0500 10 53 89. But please, just for 5 minutes. Just for 5 minutes. I give in. No more royal family. The other royal family we'll talk about. Coronation Street. Andrew calls from London. Andrew, you're on Talk Radio. It's Michael in Wakefield then. Michael, you're on Talk Radio. Good afternoon.
Hello, Tom.
Michael.
Now then,
Right.
the estate agent, by the way, but for once, I agree with you. Just hang on. Get it right down, please. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, now then, this Deirdre thing.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yes, go on. Is that it?
No. Oh, yeah.
Well, why don't you try telling us... I know you're an estate agent, and therefore you're used to very, very short sentences, but can we try and string some words together?
Indeedy. Yeah.
Indeedy.
This thing about, sorry?
Nothing.
What?
Yes?
This thing about being shacked up with Margie Clark, that would kill me. And I think she's brilliant, and I love Ken Barlow, too.
Yes.
How do you feel about Ken's reaction to it all?
How do I feel about Ken's reaction to it all? I really don't give a hoot, man. It's for anybody else who wants to talk about Coronation Street. I've decided to allow a window in the programme on the Deirdre affair.
Right, well, I will talk about Deirdre with you.
Yeah, but you're not doing it very well, so bye.
Is that it?
Yeah, that is it.
Oh, no, hang on.
That's awful. I mean, Coronation Street's obviously addled your brain.
What do you mean,
Yeah, that's the best you can do. Well, you're struggling, aren't you?
No, I'm not struggling at all.
Of course you are.
A conversation takes 2 people. You've done nothing yet.
No, a conversation takes 2 people who know what they're talking about. Well, one person who knows what they're talking about, and I don't, because I think I think nothing of Coronation Street.
Do you watch Coronation Street?
No.
So why talk about it then?
Because people wanted to. Now go away.
What do you mean, go away?
Go away. You don't know anything about... Paul calls from London. Paul, you're on Talk Radio.
Hello, Tommy.
Paul.
Just to let you know, I'm just driving through East London. I've just stopped pulled up to let you know something.
Right.
A plane's just flown past up in the sky with a towel on it saying Free Deirdre.
You're joking.
No, I hate to say it, but no. I literally just had to stop to let you know, because I'm stunned myself. Bit of a good one, that.
Yeah, what sort of a plane?
Just a normal little plane that, like they hire and sort of send up with the towel and with a message like normally happy birthday and all that.
Right, so this is a publicity stunt, and this is all this plot line is, isn't it? A publicity stunt.
Definitely.
Okay, I feel, I've capitulated for 5 minutes on the programme. I almost feel as though I'm falling for it.
I must admit, I'm just stunned completely beyond belief.
About which aspect of it?
Everything. It's a programme. It's a programme, and like you said, it is a publicity stunt.
Who sent the plane up then? This will be a newspaper, surely.
Exactly. It did say the newspaper's name before it, and I don't want to advertise it because I don't read it.
No. No. How does that work then? How does it benefit a newspaper? Sending up a plane
for them?
with Free Deirdre on it?
Yes.
Yes.
It's tacky more than anything else, I would have thought.
Yeah.
And I'm not... Yeah, I suppose it's a bit of a laugh, but... It's certainly not going to make me grab for my pennies and go and buy it from the local newsagent.
You know what's funny? We started the hour off talking about the royal family, and we're talking about Coronation Street, and the two things have got quite a bit in common.
Exactly.
Haven't they?
They have indeed.
Yeah. They're both struggling.
Exactly. And they need all the help they can get. But I like the way you've given 5 minutes over to Coronation Street, because that's struggling as well, and that's all it needs, basically.
Exactly. Janet, in Worcester, you're on Talk Radio. Janet, hello.
Hello. This just reminds me when in Crossroads years ago when Benny was sent down. And everybody, the whole country was like, Benny is innocent. They even had the car stickers, the sun visor car stickers, Benny is innocent. And it just reminds me of the same thing, It's pathetic, isn't it?
Well, it is a bit. I mean, can we construct a decent argument whereby it brings enough pleasure into people's lives for it to be important? I don't think so. Do you?
But it comes to something, doesn't it, when the country is debating, you go out to the pub and everybody's saying, what about Deirdre then?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of the end of the evening, sort of, after the curry, sort of dribbly talk, isn't it?
Yeah, mind you, she looked good, Margie Clark. I'll just say that. I'll leave it at that. I won't say any more, but then she always has and always will do.
Oh, yeah.
Janet, thanks for your call. Okay, subject closed. That's it. I've done my bit. I can't be accused of running away, can I? No, we've done it. But we've done it, and it's over. And we move on and discuss a very important educational issue in the next hour of the programme. I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Talk Radio. There's a good argument for listening.
Ground control to Major Tom.
Morning. I wish you could come to our planning meetings for this show. I really do. And so I'm going to ask you if you will. But I wish you could come to our planning meetings. They're great. The room is solid. There's the man who always sits under the table, the woman who chews a lot, the woman who phones in and says she's going to be 10 minutes late. But anyway, what came up at a recent one is that there is a radio station in Leeds which always broadcasts the same content that we broadcast the following day. There's a radio station in Leeds where a caller rang in and told us this. A radio station in Leeds which listens to our show and then goes on the air and asks people if they want to talk about what we talked about the day before. So, we sort of put our heads together on this one and decided to see if they could get out of this one. Today's topic of conversation is this. What do you think of local radio? Free call 0500 10 53 89. But we didn't leave it alone. I mean, it was a joke when we first suggested it, but there was a silence. This is how the creative process can work, There was a silence because we thought, no, that would be an interesting thing to talk about. Radio. We don't talk about the radio. We talk about absolutely everything else, but we never talk about radio. It's like if you watch Coronation Street or Emmerdale or any of those things, it's only not true to life in one respect. Nobody ever watches soaps in Coronation Street or in EastEnders. They never talk about the court case or the murder in the soaps. And it's odd, isn't it? Or perhaps what you'd expect, that we don't ask you to tell us, we, radio, ask you, people who sometimes use it, mind you, I sometimes use it, so maybe I could call in, what you think about radio. Free call 0500 10 53 89. Let's knock local radio on the head for a start, shall we? Let's do that big time, because it isn't local, you see. This is the point. My mum taught me what was local when I was small. Local was anybody on our estate, and local was as far as the other end of the high street. In other words, 2 stops on the bus. The stop in the middle of the high street and the stop at the other end of the high street, anybody beyond that wasn't a local person. They weren't local. My mum would say, are they local? And if they lived further away than that, they were not local. And so local radio isn't local, is it? I don't know what it is. It's regional or something like that. But nothing ever happened. Nobody... How often have you heard somebody who you know talked about? Or heard someone pop up that you actually know? That's local. If we ever did get local radio in this country, it would be fantastic. It would be just your road and the road behind you and the road the other side of you. And conversations about your fish shop and car parking in the main road. It would be great. And you could just ring up and take part yourself. That would be fantastic. That would be local radio. Local radio is absolutely neither one thing nor the other. Free call 0500 10 53 89. And it doesn't work the mind. I find it doesn't work the mind at all. The only time my mind ever works is if I find myself listening to what's called local radio, which isn't, is if there's a song on, like, say, Mike and the Mechanics or Eric Clapton's Will I See You in Heaven. There doesn't seem to me to be any depth of human emotion in this at all. There seems to be twittery men who sound like they own a pair of tweezers. My dad taught me, never trust a man who owns his own pair of tweezers. And there's something tweezery about those chaps. Free call 0500 10 53 89 and their preferences for fizzy soft drinks and chocolate bars. Why do I think like that? Free call 0500 10 53 89. I want to discuss radio. I want to ask you this question. You can be a focus group. Did you know they have focus groups? Have you seen the Frasier, the one with the focus group? Groups of people are got together from time to time by professionals inside radio and TV, actually, and newspapers, magazines, and they form what is called a focus group, which only means they talk about the thing that's being discussed, and so they have to focus on that for whatever it is, 45 minutes. But supposing you're in a focus group, and the focus group isn't just talk radio, but it's 2 till 4, Monday to Friday, this show. Let me ask you this question. Of course it's a wonderful show, but what's wrong with it? What's wrong with this show? Free call 0500 1053 89. I'll tell you, it's too good for a lot of people. This show's brilliant. I'm brilliant. The content's brilliant. But anything could be improved, couldn't it? Should we take the Bondilida Ola Boo out of the opening theme? I don't know. You tell me. You're in the focus group. Oh, and if you do call in, and this is absolutely essential, instead of telling us your name and the area where you live, which is how we normally do things, I want you to describe yourself as a man or a woman from the village or town you live in. And the reason for that is, in local and regional news, if you're found dead in a ditch, you're not described by your name as Joe Bloggs. You're described as a aloof man or a Funtington woman, which I think is one of the most ignominious postscripts a human being could possibly have. Free call 0500 1053 89. Welcome to your first ever focus group. The subject for discussion? This show. I'm Tommy Boyds. This is Talk Radio. There's a good argument for listening. No, if ever I'm in a pub and there's an argument going on the other side of the pub, I find myself drifting towards it. I've mentioned this before, but I was at a Frank Sinatra concert and a fight broke out at the back of the Wembley Conference Centre, all right? And Frank was up there doing, whatever it was, My Way or New York, right? And everybody was stood up, turned around, looking at the fight. And even Frank himself was stretching his neck to see if he could see what was going on. I do think people walk towards the sound of gunfire. We're referring to people, as local radio refers to people when they're dead or that they've been injured the night before. Gosh, sometimes the news on local radio, it's just such a... on a Sunday morning, you get a kind of a sweep of police incident desks, don't you? So you get, a Hilsey man spent the night in hospital after he was found by the police at 11:30 last night in a ditch. It is believed he was on his way home from the pub. Well, grand to know that, isn't it? But that's why we're referring to people by the places where they live and their sex, because that's what you get in regional news. So here we have a Hillingdon woman. Good afternoon, Hillingdon woman.
Good afternoon. Just a point to say, I'm not very impressed with the way in which, you don't do it all the time, but you're getting very much like another presenter on talk radio, and when people have finished the call and the phone's been put down, having your sarcastic, snipey, whatever it is, comment. And that's okay. Have your snipey, sarcastic comment and give them what they deserve, but don't do it when the phone's been put down.
Why not?
Because then they have to ring up again, and they don't get put through. And they say, haven't you just...
No, that's not true. You say that's not true. You don't ring up disc jockeys, do you, and say to them, please, can you not back announce a disc?
What?
It's the same thing.
No, it's not.
I'm just back announcing a call.
No, this is talk radio, and people are there to put their view, and if you're being nasty or facetious about them, at least let them have the recourse to be nasty or facetious about you.
Oh, right, and so they don't go down the pub and be nasty about me?
Well, possibly, but they don't.
What do you mean possibly? Of course they do. Of course they do.
No.
It's got to cut both ways. If I'm not allowed to back announce a call, then they're not allowed to go around telling the people in the pet shop or what have you that I'm a
No, the pet shop's ridiculous. You could go round wherever you live, your town, saying the same thing about them.
But I don't.
Well, how do we know that?
Because I wouldn't do that. I tell the truth.
No, I know, you don't do it very often, but the odd one is sneaking in, and it's not very good. It makes you look churlish and seem churlish, and I'm sure you're not.
You don't know that?
Well...
Listen, let me ask you a question.
You're just getting churlish, right?
I am. Thank you, Hillingdon woman, for your comments.
Thank you.
Stupid woman. Honestly. Fancy laying herself open to this by ringing up and saying that you shouldn't make remarks about the callers once they're gone. What are you going to do? I mean, it's boggle obvious standard, but what am I going to do? Free call 0500 1053 89.
No, I mean, I love a good debate.
Right.
But I just haven't heard one today.
No.
No.
When you say a good debate, do you mean a good Barney?
Yeah, I love a good Barney. Well, you were talking about, your Frank Sinatra concert and stuff like that.
Passionate argument.
And I do. I'll be in the pub and do the same thing.
Well, let's have one then.
I'll be listening to that.
Well, let's have one then. What do you believe in passionately?
What do I believe in passionately?
Yes.
Animal rights, for one.
Oh.
Yeah, go on.
I might have thought coming from Camden. I mean, Camden, eh?
Right.
I bet you don't even really live in Camden, do you?
I do, yeah.
No, you don't. You live on the fringe of Camden.
No, I live right dead centre of Camden.
Do you really?
On the corner from Sainsbury's, yeah.
No, I know where you are then, so you're right by the market.
The other side of Sainsbury's.
Understood.
Near Camden Road.
I'm not going to get involved in an argument about animal rights with you here, but it is one that we take up. I mean, for example, are you anti-fox hunting?
I am.
Oh dear.
You're not a fox hunter, are you?
I'm very fond of fox hunting. I don't go out as often as I used to, but I can't see. I can't see the argument against it. Never have been able to.
Right. Well, like you say, we're not going to get into that now because that's not what it's about.
And the question that I find that people like you can never answer is, how many flies must die on the headlights of a saboteur's car to justify saving one fox?
What sort of question's that?
A bloody good one.
It's not.
Well, answer it then. Oh, it ain't, mate. Answer it.
Well, you don't have headlights on in the daytime.
No, but they still hit flies as the Saab drives to the hunt.
Well, a lot of us don't go in the car. See, I used to live in the country, and we used to just go by foot.
Yes, fine. But people do. Saabs do. And they...
Some Saabs do, but I don't.
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about Saabs.
Right.
Can you answer the question? Try answering the question.
It's not a question worthy of being answered.
Well, you see, it is, because what it shows is that you don't give a stuff about flies, but you do care about foxes, and that's sizeism.
I don't kill flies myself, personally.
Well, you do if you drive a car ever.
I don't drive.
No, but people do. Saabs do. You know, you go on a bus, you go on a train.
So that means just because you kill flies when you drive to a Saab, right?
No, you're not very good at this, you see. You haven't listened to me long enough. You can't leap into that province of the argument straight away. You have to try and answer the question, which is a clear one. No, you're not.
I am. Give me a chance.
No, you're saying that, but you are clearly not going to answer the question. How many flies make a fox?
I haven't a clue.
Well, you should work it out. You should think it through. Why isn't there an organisation trying to stop people driving cars into flies? Why isn't there?
Well, this is you being churlish now, right?
This is you floundering.
It's not. It's a stupid question. It's not worthy of an answer.
No.
It's not answerable, actually, at all. It's not.
Go on, back to your TV and your CDs. You don't deserve me.
I don't.
No.
You're right.
Go on, off you go. And he has, too. Free call 0500 1053 89. At last, I've been fishing for somebody who wanted a Barney right through the hour. I know you know that. A Bradford man calls. Bradford man, good afternoon.
Hello, Mr. Tommy.
Welcome to the show.
Well, good to speak to you.
What's wrong with this show?
Well, quite a few things. You're the first thing, I would say.
At last, thank goodness. Yes, go on then.
No, seriously, Tommy. I mean, to be honest, I do hate you.
Good, that's fine.
There's a number of reasons why I do hate you, but I think I don't know whether to go into them.
By all means, obviously.
Well, your hair,
otherwise,
for example.
what kind of a conversation?
Got rid of that stupid perm that you've always had, but it's still a mess, isn't it? And you wear cowboy boots.
My hair is a mess. You were listening yesterday. This suggests that you are what we call, with great derision, an anorak.
No, I'm not an anorak.
You listen too carefully.
You're an anorak.
You listen too carefully.
You look like an anorak. I mean, who wears cowboy boots and cowboy shirts? I remember you on that show that you couldn't handle. The Live and Dangerous thing.
This is no good, you see, Bradford man, because you're coming on here pretending that you hate me and the show, but actually you idolise me. You worship everything I stand for, and in Bradford man, you wish you were me.
I do.
And that, I think, is so tragic.
So conceited. You're such a fool.
That is terrible.
You've got a cheap show. I mean, talk radio is so cheap. It's unbelievable.
It's better than cheap, man. It's free.
Listen. You pick any stupid subject out of the hat every day, and you could talk about dog poo, for example, and you'd get some fool ringing in.
I was thinking about doing that tomorrow. That's on my list of things to do. What would you do about the problem with dogs' business in the parks?
I'd just ignore it.
But you can't ignore it if you stand in it, or if children pick it up and develop toxicara canis.
Well, that's what being a kid's all about, isn't it?
Have you got a dog?
Did you ever pick up a piece of poo when you were a child?
What? Being a child is all about premature blindness.
What? What? Sorry?
Premature blindness?
Anyway,
well, you brought it up, you see, and there you are, dead in a ditch already.
No. Look, anyway, local radio isn't so bad, actually. Have you ever heard Radio 1 recently? It's terrible.
It is terrible.
It is worse.
It doesn't know what
people who have their own shows, like DJs like you.
Doesn't know what it's doing, does it?
What is it about people like you, Tommy, that you have to slag off the competition? I mean, you're not the only one, I admit, but you all do it, don't you?
The closest we can get to being music radio is, a slow fade on a call. Free call 0500 10 53 89. Thank you, Focus Group, for that. If you'd like to leave your forms with Alison on the door, and we'll talk to you again in about 6 weeks' time. It's golf next. I'm Tommy Boyd. This is Talk Radio. There's a good argument for listening. But you're not quite sure what about the immortal soul. Your assumption is that animals have immortal souls. That broadens the conversation a little bit, doesn't it?
No, yeah, it does. But what is
for one thing, it means they go to heaven.
Scientist was building up, so
if animals have immortal souls, then you'd get ghosts of animals.
Yeah.
And then people say you do.
Yeah, some people say you do. But what is these scientists building up to as well?
And then you get animals going to heaven.
Yeah, but what is these scientists building up to as well as they could do it to humans in the far future?
But Christians don't believe that animals go to heaven.
Christians don't.
No.
Well, they can believe whatever they want to believe, but me personally, I think the body is an incubator.
The body is an incubator. Free call 0500 10 53 89. Jules calls from Falkirk. You're on Talk Radio. Jules, good afternoon.
Hello, Tommy.
Hello, Jules.
How you doing?
All right, you?
Yep. I just called up to say that when I was about 12-year-old, I lived in an old boarding house, and it was a top dormitory, which was in the attic area. And to get to the toilet for the dormitory, you had to cross over a sort of staircase, go out the dormitory, and cross over the staircase. And I was going to the toilet. I hadn't gone to sleep yet, so I wasn't dreaming. There were still people awake in the dormitory. And when I looked down the staircase, there was a sort of gentleman of about 55 in what I would call sort of period costume coming up the stairs, quite solid, not ghostly at all. And I looked at him, and he got such a fright. He really jumped and stopped, and obviously didn't want me to see him. And I apologised, as you would. If you give someone a fright, you apologise. And so I'd apologised and said, I'm sorry, and went back into the dormitory. And then thought, what did I see? That can't be possible. It's a girls' boarding house. He's not meant to be there. But it was quite clear, and I thought afterwards, well, that must be what you would call a ghost. Mm-hmm. He meant me no harm whatsoever. He was quite, obviously, got a fright that I'd seen him, had no intention for me to see him, meant me no harm. And the only rational thing would be to apologise to him and go back into the dormitory. I don't know if I would absolutely say I believe in ghosts. I know what I saw. It tends to confuse me when I think about what happens to you after you die, because ghost isn't a sort of rational thing, a logical thing that I would say, well, that happens to you, I come back as a ghost. But I know what I saw, and it tends to confuse any further thought as to what would happen after I died.
Very interesting. There's new research that's been done in Japan involving a camera which is similar to... Have you heard of Kirlian photography?
Yes. I actually do a lot of photography myself.
Do you?
Well, I'm sort of, photographer sort of thing.
Well, in that case, you would, wouldn't you?
Yes.
That's not a coincidence, is it, really?
I do lots of other things.
Funny thing.
That as
okay. All right. Just lightening the load there. What they're suggesting is that it's possible to take a photograph of a type of energy which they have believed in for thousands of years and which Western medicine is now comfortably
slowly coming
accepting.
Around to realising,
Chi energy or key energy. You've heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they can now take a photograph of it. But some of the photographs they've taken of it, using this special film rather than special camera, as I understand it, a bit like an X-ray, shows that when it's away from its host, that's to say the person whose key energy it is,
certainly,
it reconstitutes itself, because key energy inhabits every part of the body, it reconstitutes itself in such a way that when photographed, it looks almost like the person that it used to be in.
Yes. Well, I can understand how they would take photographs of that, because we do have energies and charges, be they electrical pulses or whatever, going through the body. And so with the development of photographic techniques, then I can see it being quite rational that we would eventually come to be able to photograph those energies going around the body.
Now, just to develop this theory a little bit, they believe that key energy is a form of energy which doesn't enable you to run a 4-minute mile. It's a form of energy which regulates the relationship between the body and the mind, or if you like, the body and the soul.
Yes.
So that if various parts of your body are out of kilter, it might affect the way you think about something.
Oh, certainly. But I mean, even thoughts, even the mind is. It's quite strange to think of your personality and your thoughts being electrical impulses, but to a certain extent, that's the way that the brain works.
Right.
We only understand a very, very small fraction of that, but it's quite hard, I think, for us to think of our own intellectual thoughts as being nothing but a series of impulses. So I'm not really disassociating your, what's the way to put it, not your psychic self, but your soul, your actual essence of your being. I'm not confusing that with sort of physical energy.
If a field of key energy, which everybody has inside their body,
certainly,
all right, is something which straddles both the mind and the body, or the soul and the body, if you like,
yes,
because it is the seat of our emotions and to a certain extent our consciousness.
Certainly.
Right? And if it can now be photographed in the body and out of the body, which it leaves when the body expires, we know that we can trip over a body. In other words, because it's a physical thing, its physical self remains wherever it is when it expires. The theory is that this key energy field also reconstitutes itself outside the body in the proximity of the body after the host body has expired.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the influence of a dead body, if you bump into it, is that you trip over it.
Yeah.
The theory is that if you find yourself either in or near a field of key energy, which is no longer in its host, but has been reconstituted, okay, in whatever medium it uses, it has the same influence on you that you get from a dead body when you trip up. But what happens is that instead of a physical trip up of a dead body, you get an emotional trip up from this field of key energy, which remains where it was when it left its host. And that all adds up, doesn't it?
Well, yes, it does. I mean, because we're becoming advanced in science that we're actually beginning to find out more and more about the soul of the person. And I've always, for a long time, I felt that actually the soul and the body were the same thing. But people had a tendency to make the soul a spiritual thing because they couldn't actually understand the mechanics of how our soul works. It almost insults the soul to sort of say, well, actually, yes, I do know how you work. You're complete physical, electrical and chemical reaction. That could then carry on. So science is beginning to give us answers, I think, about our soul, and I hesitate from using the word soul. Our soul, the essence of ourselves, and we're almost like mentally 2 steps behind it, really, because we haven't really caught up with the concept of it. It's almost unimaginable for us because we've never really. We're too slow for the scientific advances in understanding it. It takes us 2 or 3 steps to sort of catch up with that. But also what you were saying about the actual visual representation of the key energies, that they can now photograph it, and that it sort of almost looks like the person that it comes from.
Yep.
That I'm not so sure about. I think it probably does sort of almost look like the person, but I think that's because as a visualization of something that we have never seen before, you tend to almost visually contort it in. And the brain does do this, and the way that the visual cortex works and the brain works, because you're looking at something that you have no real conception of, you tend to turn it into something that is mentally understandable. And so it's quite understandable that we would sort of say, well, it sort of looks like a person, because that's where it came from. That's where we think it came from. And so we try to force a visual picture onto it to a certain degree.
Listen, Jules, good to talk to you. Thanks for your call.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
I've called you often, Tommy, and I do enjoy talking to you.
Well, we enjoy it when you call.
Good.
Bye-bye.
I'll speak to you soon.
I
Bye.
hope so. Bye-bye. Lou calls from Wellingborough. You're on Talk Radio. Lou, afternoon.
Hello, Tommy.
Lou.
That was interesting. About the chi, I mean, you often hear about people who've had transplants and they take on a habit or a liking that they've never liked before.
Yes.
I mean, could that be some way of sort of spirit moving on, if you like?
Yes.
You know, I've always found that rather fascinating, to think that somebody else can live inside. But what I really rang up for was when my grandmother was dying, just before she died, she sort of came sort of in and out, if you like.
Yeah.
And she was talking to people that we knew were dead. And it was like a welcoming committee.
Really?
Yeah. And I was still, what a nice way to think that people were there to welcome you wherever you went or to whatever you did.
Oh, yes.
And she'd be chatting away to them about current things, not things in the past, so that you would think that she was just remembering and going over in her mind, but things that were happening now. And then she'd say, "Oh, I'm nearly ready. I'm nearly ready." It was a bit spooky, but. And my granddad always said, because he died a long time before her, that if there was a sort of life after death, he would come back and he would tell her, which sadly he never did. But I lived on my own for quite some time, and I sort of was sitting alone one evening, and he came to me, but I never felt that I could tell her because she might be upset that he came to me and not her.
Yes, I know what you mean.
And then I found, after she died, I wished I'd have told her. I don't know how she would have taken it.
Well, it's a comforting idea. And I hope you're right.
Well, I hope so, yes.
We all do, actually, don't we?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you do believe in ghosts, of course?
Yes, I do.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do.
You do. And they are the spirit of people who've passed on.
I think so, yes. And I don't think that
Simple
they're
as that.
always lost spirits. You know, a lot of people say, oh, they're troubled souls.
No.
I don't think necessarily they are.
No.
I think they're perhaps performing a function.
Lou, thanks for your call. Free call 0500.
Don't forget to subscribe and like. Comment too if you wish. Even slap your legs and make a purchase from Ann Summers. But don't do nothing.